Welcome back to the Your Golf Performance Podcast. We've got a bit of a different one today. We've got writer slash commentator slash golf media guru, Jimmy Emanuel. Thank you for coming on.
My absolute pleasure. I'm very excited to be here. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, we've probably been texting for a couple of years now about getting you on and telling some stories. You know what? I would have preferred an evening session where you'd had a couple of drinks and I think we might have got a little bit more goss out of you, but nonetheless, 9 o'clock on a Friday morning will be okay.
Yeah, I do like doing a sportsman's type of affair, but probably not at 9 o'clock in the morning as much as people might think. I haven't had a couple of drinks, so I'm just a couple of coffees and I'm ready to go.
Mate, great work the last few weeks doing the Aussie Summer of Golf. So you were the golf media manager, I guess, for Golf Australia and the PGA?
Yeah, so I was media manager of the Australian Open and then sort of second in charge of that sort of space at the Aussie PGA. So Aussie Open was my event last couple of years. So that means doing all the prep work, doing all the planning for media ops for all the players, doing all their schedules, doing all media requests and everything like that, and then planning out how everything looks, media center builds, where you do all the interviews, how it all works, and answering any questions as big or small as they may be, where lunch is, or, can I talk to Adam Scott for 15 minutes? So, yeah, looking after that. So Aussie Open was obviously a massive week, so a massive year, really. So since Rory won the Masters, basically, we've been in that mode, getting ready, and thankfully it turned out okay, because you don't want to be the media manager of an event that doesn't work out very well from a media perspective.
I feel like Australian Open golf is back and Aussie golf is back. Just the amount of, I guess, social media and the PGA Tour players like Max Homa saying I got to play there next year. Just when a player like that puts a tweet out like that, are people in the background already reaching out? Like, would there be someone from GA saying, hey, let's make this happen?
There's an amazing amount of conversations with players that happen throughout the year that don't always turn out successful, but maybe not for that year, but maybe for the next year. So there's staff at major events. There's talking with all sorts of player managers about who's keen, who might come. So whether or not someone's immediately gone to Max in probably his downtime, I don't know, but there'd be already in the works conversations with tours, with managers about what next year looks like, which is what, in my mind, and this is just my personal thing, it's not GA, it's not PGA, was this year's Aussie Open was a big proving year of, we got Rory, that's great, that's going to make it enormous. We got pretty much most of the overseas Aussies. We've got the best golf course in the country. Let's do it, show what the tournament is, and then they all go back, and the players do your work in that situation. You know as well as anyone, the players talk, and so Rory will go back, and he's been playing with Shane Lowry and Scotty Scheffler this week, and he'll talk about what his experience was like. The other Americans, Matt McCarty, who plays on the PGA Tour, I had a drink with his caddy the week after. He's going to tell every other caddy, you got to go to Australia. So the players will do that work, and next year will be bigger, and that's how you build on it, basically, is word of mouth. It's Jeff Ogilvy's big thing is, if you get it right, you do the player experience, the fan experience, it takes care of itself, the recruiting to a certain extent, and golf course is a massive part of that. So, yeah, I don't know if anyone's been on the phone to Max just yet, but I'm sure there'll be a polite inquiry very early in the year about following up on his promise.
Yeah, and obviously you would have spent a fair amount of time with Rory that week. What was it like? Like, was he? I know he'd made a comment about Royal Melbourne not being, obviously he said Kingston Heath's the best course down there on the Sandbelt, but what was the vibe like from him for that week?
Oh, it was amazing. He was unreal. I've done a little bit with him in the past, but not a great extent at sort of majors and stuff like that, where you ask a question. But I spent the first 3 days of the week pretty closely with him. We did a content piece as part of a thing with Victoria, and going around a few clubs that's been released in parts out on social media, and I was the one interviewing him as part of that. I was along for the ride for a couple of hours, and so we spent a couple of hours pretty close contact. And then the Tuesday night, the gala night, he did a Q&A with Adam and Min, and I looked after the two of them. And then I was the idiot sitting on the stage next to him when he said Kingston Heath's better than Royal Melbourne, and my face was all over everywhere, getting ready to be accosted by members of golf clubs telling me that he was wrong. But he was unreal. He bought into everything. He was happy to do everything that was asked and promote the event, promote golf in Australia, promote the Sandbelt particularly, which he is so fond of. And the level of excitement was probably unlike something I've worked closely with, I'd say. I've worked a lot with our best Aussie guys and some big overseas players in that same sort of capacity, and you can tell when things are a little bit higher level. When Adam walks into a room, everyone kind of notices Adam. Cam's the same. Minwoo's getting there. But when Rory was walking around or going in somewhere, everyone kind of switched on and everyone noticed. And it's quite funny. It's almost even the journos in the media centre seemed in awe of the guy. And he was very relaxed and very comfortable. And he's a really nice guy. And yeah, I think he had a really good week. I think it was the end of a very long year. You sort of look at how much travel he's done and coming down here to end it all, like, that's a crazy amount of travel to do. But he was unreal, and he really took to the event, took to the golf course. I think, that comment was obviously interesting, but it helped get us on the back and front pages. It helped me do my job. So, I thank those guys when they say something like that.
Was there any internal chatter from the Royal Melbourne members or
I'm sure there was. Yeah, I'm sure there was. It's one of those things, right, that it happened a bit the year before with Cam as well, when Cam spoke about not directly the setup of Kingston Heath, but about it was soft. It was soft at Kingston Heath the year before because it poured with rain. Like, everyone can have their conspiracy theories about everything else. It poured, and he said what he said after the Pro-Am on the Wednesday. Well, I was staying across the road and I woke up to the sound of the rain that Wednesday, and Cam said everything, and it ended up everywhere it promoted. And it gets people upset, or it gets people, wanting to have conversations. But that was the same with Rory. It's his opinion. That's the thing. And his opinion that I think a lot of people forgot. He said it's a top 10 golf course in the world. I just don't think it's the best one in this little stretch of golf. And he's not alone in that thought. I think there's other people who think Kingston Heath is better, but it certainly helped promote the tournament, help promote the Melbourne Sandbelt. I reckon there's a lot of people in America looking up how many good golf courses we've got down here because they've heard of Royal Melbourne. They might not have heard of any of the others, and Rory doubled down on it on another podcast this week. But, a guy like that sharing his opinions and speaking openly in that forum is great. Like, we don't want Rory to come in and say bland statements and say nothing, because that doesn't drive interest, and it doesn't show who he is. He showed his personality. He showed his opinions. He really sort of put a marker out as to, this is who I am and this is what I think. Now, it may not be correct in everyone's mind, but at least he spoke his mind, which is a positive.
We're welcoming a new partner to the Your Golf Performance podcast. This will be a performance analytics partner, Circles, or Draw More Circles as you may know them. The ultimate tool for tracking your golf progress. Whether you're a junior golfer, college player or coach, the everyday club golfer, or a golf professional, Draw More Circles allows you to easily track and analyze your performance like never before. With their innovative performance analytics, you get insights into your game that go far beyond just the scorecard. From strokes gained metrics to detailed reports on every aspect of your play, you can pinpoint exactly where to focus your practice to improve faster. One of the best features that I've found with Circles is the course management tool, which will take your physical data to help you navigate around the course smarter. They're actually taking your stats that you've entered into the system and helping you strategically play a better game of golf. Plus, it's perfect for coaches who want to keep track of their players' development and offer data-driven advice. If you can't measure it, you're guessing. The best part is that as you are one of my listeners, you'll get exclusive access to their services through our partnership. These prices are too hot to mention, and I'll need you to email me. My email address is brentdalegolf@gmail.com, or feel free to message me on Instagram @BrentDaleGolf. We welcome Circles to the team. For the overseas listeners, the stuff that Jimmy was just mentioning there about Cam Smith and his comments last year about it being soft. So for the last, was it 3 years, the event had been,
3 years, yeah.
It was mixed, right? Male and female. And there was a lot of chatter down there that they'd watered the greens to soften it up for the women so that they could, be able to hold the greens, right? Is that what you're mentioning, what Cam had said?
Yeah. So Cam basically spoke about it being soft, and it may be an inference that it was because of the format. So men, women, all abilities, 12 all abilities players. Look, there's a huge amount of difficulties in playing a dual gender event at the same place because golf is played differently. But that wasn't that wasn't a real focus of last year. It was just weather. And similarly, we got absolutely poured on with rain this year in the lead up to the Australian Open. Like before we got down when we were in Queensland at the Aussie PGA, it poured and poured and poured, and so it was softer than you would want it Monday, Tuesday. That's it's an outdoor sport,
Yeah.
right? So that's just those things happen, and guys say things maybe with they've got something else. I don't speak for Cam. I don't know what he was trying to get across, but sometimes guys say things with another idea in mind. But yeah, that's kind of the nature of what I do in that communication space. Is you deal with what comes up, and like I say, when players speak their mind, it's interesting because you get to understand them, you get to learn a little bit about them or their thoughts and feelings. And if your job is to get golf on the front page, back page, and on the TV, when someone says something a bit controversial, it certainly helps do that.
Yeah, I guess the last thing you want is them just coming in being robots and saying the same
Yeah,
thing that's boring over you want
yeah.
to create a little bit of that interest and enthusiasm. And look, Rory obviously mentioning, Royal Melbourne's a top 10 course in the world. It made me think, like, there's a lot of golf trips that I've run overseas over the last 10, 15 years. And it wasn't probably until 3 or 4 years ago, probably COVID, right? Where you sit down, you go, hang on, we actually have some of the best golf courses in the world that are an hour plane flight or a 90-minute plane flight from where I'm in Sydney. But I'd rather jump on a plane and go to the US. And it, like, I'm angling more now, like especially like what Clates has built down in Goggin, down in Tassie, like 7 Mile Beach, and I love Barnbougle. But I played Royal Melbourne East and West October last year, and it was phenomenal. And I want to have a week down there where I get an Airbnb and just play all of those top courses down there. Have you played many of them?
I've played, yeah, most of them really. So I'm trying to think of one I haven't played, but yeah, I've been fortunate enough to go and do it, and it's not something I did a huge amount of before the last few years, I suppose. That I really started to play more and more of those ones, and I went down recently with a mate. He's got a golf clothing company, and he wanted to do a sales run. He wanted to drive his ute down with all the samples and go to the golf clubs. And he said, do you want to come down and play some golf? Now, I don't typically play much golf anymore for fun, but I was, oh, yeah, let's go do it. And we spent 5 days down there. We played 4 sandbelt courses, and it's great fun. Like, we played Royal Melbourne East with Clates, and it's just the best. Like, going
Yeah.
and doing something like that, and a guy like that who probably, to Rory's point, we're hitting the golf ball the distance that makes those golf courses still really, really good. It's more of a decision. The bunkers are in play, and it's a more of a test for us. But like Clayton nearly won an Aussie PGA around the East Course, and he was just playing it on memory. Like, he's not even reading putts. He just knows that the putts break here and there and
Yeah,
whatever.
wow.
And like, it's special, but they're all different down there, but they're so much fun. Like, to play, I've played both at Royal Melbourne. I've played the Composite, fortunately enough, and it's pretty unbelievable. Kingston Heath every time is awesome. Victoria is so good. You even go where the office of the PG&G, Sandy Golf Links public golf course across the road from Royal Melbourne. It's awesome. It's
Yeah.
unreal. Like,
It's
Spring
looked after
Valley,
by Royal Melbourne, right?
it is. Yeah, they have
Yeah.
greenkeepers on staff there effectively. But
Yeah.
yeah, like all these places, Peninsula Kingswood, like that doesn't get included all the time, but PK is so good. The 2 golf courses there,
Yeah.
Yarra Yarra, since it's had a bit of work done, awesome. Metro, like unbelievable. These places are awesome. So it's I reckon we sort of spoke about it with a few people traveling from overseas. It's the best, arguably the best collection in a tight space of golf in the world. The only one you might rival it is Long Island in the US, where you've got all those things like Shinnecock and stuff like that right on top of each other. It's pretty hard to beat that little pocket of golf that's just in a suburban part of Melbourne.
There's a lot of chatter about, a 5th major, which I don't think it'll ever happen. But do you think they'll ever do something like that and rotate it? Say, No Laying Up was saying the other week about having it, and like every 3rd year it has to be, at Royal Melbourne. Like, they're obviously obsessed with it. Do you ever hear anything on the inside about that?
Yeah, not particularly. I mean, the no laying up guys, I can tell you, I played the composite with Solly and Ben, and it took them a while to learn how to play that kind of golf, I can tell you, because they were coming
Yeah,
in trying to hit it, airmail it to pins and having it go over the back, and there's me just nudging it down like an old man and hitting it closer. But
yeah,
um, I've always loved that idea that there would be a major that now travels the world because like we've got claims obviously from golf course from like we've showed at the Aussie Open, we've shown at Live Adelaide, we show up for top level golf, like
mm,
that is an atmosphere thing. But Asia's got a massive claim, like Japan and Korea, is golf is so big in these countries and it doesn't get that top level of professional golf. But I think it would kind of cheapen the major brand to add a fifth major at this point.
yeah,
Women's golf, it's kind of struggled to really solidify what a major championship is when you've got majors that have been added later. They're added for different reasons, and
yeah,
you don't want. We've already got a major that most people consider the fourth of four without question in the PGA, which might be harsh, but in women's golf, it kind of even is a bit more murky because you've got an extra one. You'd love to see a tournament that travels the world, but everyone's got to understand the inner workings of the PGA Championship is the PGA of America's major event.
yeah.
They're not.
That's right.
They work very closely with the other PGAs. I had a chat with Susie Wiley the other day about something, and she's talking about how much she loves working with the PGA of Australia and other PGAs. They all work in very closely, but they're not giving up what they've got. So
No,
I think that the chatter might more be towards global schedules of major tours, and that
mm,
maybe we are showing that if that is something that happens, we deserve to be a part of it. And I think after the Aussie Open particularly, but that fortnight of major event golf here, it'd be hard to argue. And I don't think there's ever been a player come down here and go, I didn't have a good time. It's just
yeah.
getting him down here is the thing, right?
It just really felt like Aussie golf was back. So many people were talking about it, and so
Yeah.
you've done a good job, mate. What we'll do, this podcast is about, I guess, the listeners trying to find little gold nuggets of info off people. Now, you would, whilst you're not a golf coach, you have been a pretty decent player your whole life. And now you're hanging around, so you would have learned a few little things or noticed a few things hanging around Rory. So I'm gonna fire a few different questions at you now for the next 20 or so minutes. You okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, taking talent out of it. Have you noticed anything different about the top players that you've interviewed? Across amateur and professional golf.
Yeah, they're all different, I think, is the biggest thing. The
Yep.
best players in the world are all their own personalities, and their golf and the way they go about it matches up to their personality. I think they all eventually find who they are, and that's probably something that in amateur golf is less prevalent. Top level amateur golf is less prevalent. They try and maybe fit a mold a bit more. The
Mm,
guys that are successful as tour pros find out what works for them and it matches them. And you just got to look at, if you look at top Australians, Cam is very casual in how he goes about things and very relaxed and everything like that. You just look at the way he walks, look at the way he talks, look at everything like that. His best golf, I think, is played when he walks in that same way and he approaches it in that same way with a certain seriousness, obviously, about how hard he's working. Adam is much more structured, is much more organized, is much more, this is how I do things, and that's how he goes about his best golf as well. So, yeah, I think matching who you are to how you try and do it is one of the biggest things you see from the best players in the world. Like Minwoo plays
yeah,
his when there's a big crowd and he can show off.
yeah,
That's what gets him going, right? Is I reckon if he was playing a small event with no crowds, he'd struggle to get moving. So he knows he's got to try and play where there's going to be atmosphere and it's going to drive him and it's going to really click him. Like I'm sure if he goes plays a Royal Freeway with his mates and no one's watching, I'm sure it's still pretty good. But
yeah.
at the top level,
He
you
thrives.
sort
He thrives off
yeah. So it's
showing off.
finding what works for you, and that's the other part of it is it's a constant search. Adam Scott
Yeah.
is in his mid 40s and the guy is still looking for it. Like he's been one of the best
Mm,
players of a generation, but he's still searching for something. And that's the guys who have long careers, I think, is guys and girls, is the constant thought of there could be a minuscule improvement that means I win a golf tournament rather than finish fifth. And
yeah.
that's always been a thing that stands out, I think, to me.
Do you think some people are too giving of their time? and it could be detrimental to their golf. Like if they're just forever on interviews or, they're in the media center. Do you see much of that?
We don't get it so much with our events, I wouldn't have thought, because they come back for this limited period. Everything is very scheduled. Everything is very pre-organized because it has to be. That's just, you've got to build it out in blocks, and this is your window to do this and that and this and that. So we don't get it much with our big events, but people definitely can be. People are friendly, and that's a good thing. But some people love to have a chat, and then that means you're having a chat. There's an interview more often, and a podcast wants you on, and someone wants you to do this and do that. People definitely can be overly giving, which is not what people like me want. You want them to be giving because it makes it very easy for you to do stuff. But in certain situations, you can do too much, and it can take away from what you're trying to do. The thing I would say is, if you're going to do it and you're happy to do it, it's great, but you do it around when suits you. So you still block out your practice time. You don't let people just wander in while you're hitting balls and, oh, can we have a chat right now? It's, oh, no, I'm working for an hour and a half. I'll meet you here. That's what good players do and good managers do, is you set it aside, and everyone wants to have a chat while they're hitting balls or hitting putts. Like, everyone does that, but take away the extended time commitments and put them where you need them, because that's the other thing. I mean, a week of a golf tournament is a big week. Everyone's busy doing stuff all the time, but you also can't be practicing and playing all the time, because you will burn yourself out by the time you got a tee in the ground Thursday morning. Like, I've seen that a million times, of guys get into the biggest event in their life and they hit 8,000 balls and they chip and putt nonstop and they play holes, and by the time Thursday mornings, they're already cooked. So you got to have things to fill your time too, right?
There's a couple of things that I've learnt doing this pod is the better players that I've chatted to don't try to, I guess when you're a young player, if you get a tour start, you want to make the most of it. I want to hit balls all day. I want to chip. I want to putt. I want to play as many holes as I can. A lot of them just conserve energy. 9 holes, go play 9, hit a few balls, hit a few chips, whatever, do media. And the other thing is like the gym stuff. Like, obviously I ask a lot of them questions about their gym routines and that. And a lot of them say they really struggle tournament weeks to fit it in without getting up at a ridiculous, obviously Tiger used to get up at 3 a.m. or whatever it was to do it. But I guess those weeks can be, and the bigger the event, like they're just busy for the player, right?
Yeah, they are. It's really about managing your schedule to fit in with your regular schedule, I think. Like, it's great to be, if you go to the gym every day, well, then you should go to the gym every day during a golf tournament too. But maybe not lift heavy, or maybe not do that, but make it work into, so your body and your mind knows you're on your normal schedule.
Routine.
A lot of the overseas guys who travel, we spoke about Rory. The first thing he did when he got into Melbourne was go to the gym, because knew he was tired. He knew he was going to be jet lagged. So he's got to wake his body up. So this is how he does it. Now, that might be different for everyone. Some guys might go for a walk as soon as they land, or some guys might go straight to the golf course. That's their way of doing it. But it is definitely the best, the most experienced players manage their week better than the players who come in and it's their first event, because, like you said, they're not playing 18-hole practice rounds every day. They're playing 9-hole practice rounds. And if they've got a pro-am, they'll know if it's 18 or 9 holes at the start of the week, and they'll work that into their schedule as to whether they're going to see the whole 18 holes that day or they're going to see 9 holes. So maybe they need to play an extra 9 holes, and they're going to hit balls with a purpose to warm up for that 9 holes, and maybe after to work on something, but they're not going to hit balls just to hit balls, and they're not going to chip and putt. And if you're not in the pro-am, don't come and spend the whole day at the practice facilities either. Like, you see that all the time. Back a few years ago, when equipment companies used to pay everyone to use a certain product, you'd see guys pre-qualify for an Aussie Open, and the first thing they did was go and get a new driver.
Yep.
So what are you
doing?
We'll
give you $800 to use the driver this week.
Like,
and it's like, oh, yeah, sweet. Like, what? You just, I know. I used to see it all the time.
You just played probably your best golf to get into an event with what you've got. And the first thing you're going to do Monday afternoon is change what you got you there. That's a big thing. And so often you see it with, we have a lot of events on the Aussie Tour where there's amateurs and stuff like that, elite amateurs in the WebEx Players Series coming and play. You see it's such a big moment that people want to do well, and they change what they do, or they think they should do more. They think, well, you got here with what you got here with. That's what you need to keep going. And
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing I'd say to young players as well is go and play with good players as much as you can and ask them what they do and see what they do. And, part of it will be a bit of a shock to the system. I remember having one playing with Kurt Barnes when I was younger, but you'll see things that you can't do that they can do. That's not the end of the world either. That's golf, but learn about things. Talking to guys, older guys like Scott Hend and everything like that. Hendy knows how to travel more than any professional golfer who's ever done it. The guy's been on more planes in more countries than anyone. And he so often would say, the young guys come out and they just automatically book the tournament hotel and do this, do that. They spent their paycheck before they've made their paycheck. So you just got to learn from those around you. And the guys, in terms of tournament preparation, not overdoing it is the biggest one. There's a handful of guys who can do that. Peter Fowler's one. Peter Fowler's, going to hit balls, going to grind relentlessly until he's there, but he's done it his whole life. I've never seen anyone else successfully really do it. Pete Lonard, probably another one, but those are unique people to be able to do that and hit so many golf balls and do that.
Hey, listeners, I just wanted to give a big shout out to one of our amazing partners, True Protein. They've been with me for a while now, and honestly, I can't speak highly enough about them. For years, I struggled to find a protein powder that didn't make me feel sick. Most brands would often make my stomach feel upset, and I'd just truly given up. But ever since I started using True Protein, it's completely changed. Their products make me feel great. I've never had that heavy or queasy feeling I used to get with the other brands. I'm absolutely obsessed with the choc peanut butter flavor that I've been putting in my protein shakes with a banana and some ice and some almond milk. Absolute game changer. It's become my pretty much everyday go-to. And also the other thing that I'm sort of having probably too often is their collagen hot chocolate. Every morning, I just mix it in with some hot water, and it's like 12 grams of protein for about 80 calories. So you can't go wrong. Plus, their protein bars are perfect for snacking on the course or during lessons. They keep me fueled without the crash. True Protein is an Aussie-made brand that uses clean, high-quality ingredients with no weird fillers or artificial junk. That's a huge deal for me because those fake sweeteners is what I've always struggled with, and they'd all set me off. So with our partnership, you can get a $25 off your first order as a new customer. Just use the code TRUEYGP at checkout. That's TRUEYGP. I'm proud to partner with True Protein because they've genuinely made a difference for me, and I know they'll do the same for you. So we obviously met, we were on the same table a few years back at Ewan Porter's wedding up at Noosa, and obviously that's I caddied for him, and just listening to you say that, you know him really, really well. We grew up, in the 90s, and golf instruction wasn't as big as what it is now. Our practice was out on the golf course. You'd play as many holes as you can after school, and you'd chip and you putt and you'd do all that. And obviously, when I started caddying for him, I couldn't believe how much he stressed himself out about his swing. So iPhones weren't around when I was caddying for him, and he had a digital camera, and I'd have to record nearly every swing, and he'd stop and he'd look back. Oh, that's disgusting, and this and that. And I'm there. I was a pro. I was just finished my traineeship, and I kept trying to say to him, dude, it's not that bad. Like, you've won on tour this year, and like the Corn Ferry Tour, which was nationwide back then. But I remember having a 10 or 11 hour day at Moona Links with him, and it was 18 holes on the course and probably 5 to 6 hours on the range and the chipping and the putting green. And he missed the cut. Oh, he might have made the cut that week, but like, players can just do their heads in before the tournament even starts. Am I right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, I think Ports is a little bit older than me, but not that much. But it was a similar thing in terms of not to anywhere near the same level. But for me, that I came through into golf probably later, as that's what I wanted to do, and that was my sport. I played cricket, I played rugby, but I came in late to it, and I was good because I was reactionary and I had a natural hand-eye ability, and I chipped and putted really good, and I was very much see ball, hit ball kind of thing, and I naturally swung the golf club pretty well. But I ended up going down a path with someone teaching me and becoming obsessed with positions and becoming obsessed with the idea of being a good ball striker, because I'd never felt I was a good ball striker.
Yeah.
I played good golf, not being in my opinion, good ball striker. I could hit the golf ball okay. And then I became someone who couldn't play. I could hit the ball. I could look really good on a range. Like I'd hit balls and you'd walk past and stop and go, geez, that's a pretty good position. But I
Yeah.
couldn't play. I
You
couldn't
forgot how to score.
score. And I think for our sort of generation of Australians, there was a huge number of that. We used to be the guys that swung it best on the range and never did anything for a long, long time, because how that happens, you never know. It's you can't pinpoint it and blame it on something. But Aussies were guys who swung the golf club better than everyone and didn't do much with it for a long time. That individuality, and I think there was probably less of guys coming through or girls coming through at a young age getting a coach who then went with them the whole way and knew they had intricacies in the way they swung the golf club, but worked with those to maximize their ability and output. And yeah, I mean, Ports was just one of many guys who did the same thing, became obsessed with how it looked and, where it needed to be. I was early stages of video as well, where every lesson was the first thing you did was you put it on camera to have a look at it. You spent, if it was a half-hour golf lesson, you probably spent 15 minutes sitting in front of a big computer, drawing lines on it and putting it next to Adam Scott and all that sort of stuff. And you'd walk away from the lesson going, oh, at this, halfway down, I'm in the exact same position as Adam Scott. And you go out and play and someone go, what'd you have? Oh, 82. Well, that doesn't kind of match up, right? That's not how you're supposed to have success. So, yeah, people find their little things and I think that's the thing is people always want to get better at the thing they're not necessarily good at. And then it creeps into other things. For me, it crept into, I became a terrible driver of the golf ball and basically had driver yips and still don't drive the golf ball good. So I'm now an okay ball striker. I can now, hit good iron shots, but it's not much point in hitting good iron shots when they're your third because you're punching it out of the trees.
Have you got any particular moments or interviews in your career that sort of stand out? Is there one that you're maybe, especially proud of?
There's probably a lot of them, I'd say. I've been lucky to do a lot of cool and different sort of things. But I really now look at it and sit and enjoy the fact that I've been covering some of these people since they were teenagers and amateurs. I wrote the first real big feature story in a magazine on Lucas Herbert when he got into what was going to be his first major at the Open at Carnoustie, I want to say, maybe 2017, 2018, something like that.
Yeah.
And he ended up actually getting into the PGA the couple of weeks before, last minute. But, sitting down with Lucas, it was midnight for me because he was overseas and talking for an hour and writing this story that turned out to be quite good according to other people. And now I've known Lucas for a long, long time and still get out there and cover him and see what he's become. But otherwise, I mean, I've been lucky to interview a lot of special people, whether they're players, administrators, whoever, develop relationships with them. I've been to Augusta. I've done that as a journo. I've obviously spent a lot of time with Rory a couple of weeks back. That's pretty cool. And developed these great relationships and things. I used to like the stuff I used to like. I was an equipment nerd, right? I was a club fitter and club builder for a long time. And so when I started doing this kind of work, I used to do these interviews with Adam where he and I would just go full equipment nerd for 20 minutes and just talk about what we were both up to with our putters and what we're like. I loved doing that, but I've been lucky. I've done a lot of cool ones, and I played 18 holes with Gary Player in South Africa, 2 years ago, and interviewed Gary. And
did he show you his abs?
He hit himself in the stomach. It's difficult for a podcast medium, but there's the same things that you see on TV or every interview. But interesting guy, very interesting guy is the way we all put it, I suppose. But that's a pretty cool one to have. Being
so what was that for? What was that?
That was so through BMW. BMW have a world final thing where you buy a car, you go into a local final, and you can end up in this world final. And I ended up going over there with them to South Africa to Fancourt, where they played the President's Cup, the tied President's Cup, and he was there as part of it. And they said, "Do you want to interview him?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And then, "Do you want to play with him?" I said, "Oh, yeah, I reckon I could do that." So we played the links at Fancourt where they played that President's Cup, played 18 holes and did all that. But like on that same trip, I interviewed Fanny Sunesson, the caddy for Faldo
Yeah.
and everyone. And like that was a completely different interview, completely different person, but equally as fascinating. Like those are some of the cool ones, like I've interviewed Billy Foster and talked about Sevi and all those sort of things. And, there's never bad ones, really, hopefully. They're all
Yep.
interesting in their own way, I've had a huge amount to do with Ryan Peake, who won the New Zealand Open and criminal background was a bikie and was in jail. I've had a huge amount to do with Peaky. It's always fascinating to interview him and, learn about that story. There's probably more of those smaller ones. Maybe people haven't heard of the person or it's less widespread. That's the more interesting. You find out about these people and find out about their stories. And, I probably don't have the best memory either because I'm probably leaving out some really, really good ones that I've done over the journey. But they're all interesting in their own way. Like if I didn't find interviewing someone interesting, I probably need to change jobs, right? Because that's kind of the idea.
There's going to be a parent listening or a kid listening, and maybe they like telling stories or they like writing. And how did you go down that journey? Right, of you're obviously in high school. Was there something in school you went, okay, I want to be a writer, or did you just sort of fall into this?
Yeah, kind of. So I grew up with the idea that I was going to play professional sport for a living. And
We all did.
That was it. Exactly right. And I'm a child still mentally, so I probably thought it later than everyone else who realised maybe that wasn't going to work out. But I played cricket and rugby and thought, I'll play for Australia in one of those or both of those or whatever it was going to be. And then got hurt playing footy and didn't get picked for a team playing cricket. And so you start to, but I started playing golf. Like I think everyone I played those sports with, we all played a little bit of golf in the holidays and stuff like that. And that was the sport I definitely showed the most aptitude for. So I started playing more golf and golf became the thing. Maybe this is what I want to do, but I came to it later and I sort of knew I'd need some time. And so I was in high school and thinking I might go play college golf over in the States, not at a great school or anything like that, but that would be my way to get myself more time to prepare and see if I could do this. But while I was at school, we did a careers test kind of thing where they ask you all these random questions and it spits out what you're going to be when you eventually grow up. And mine said sports journalist. I kind of went, nah, that's not going to be right. I'm going to play golf for a living. And it didn't work out playing golf pretty quickly. And I worked in pro shops. And like I said, I was a club fitter, club builder. I loved doing that stuff. I was really, really lucky to work with some people who kind of just took me under their wing and taught me stuff. There's a guy, Hector McCauley, who works in Singapore.
Were you at Power Golf, were you?
Yeah, I was. That was the first job out of high school, yeah. So
there you go.
Hector now works in Singapore for Titleist, but he taught me how to, do club repairs, how to do regrips, how to do reshafts, how to do everything like that. And I just loved it. And I love club fitting and I was quite good at it. And then I was doing that and that was all I was going to do. I was just going to work in golf shops and occasionally play and see what happened. And then I always knew I could write. I did higher levels of English and history that were always about writing. I wasn't a numbers or science guy. I was a written word kind of guy. I've got a brother who's a very smart guy and, works in universities as a writer. And I knew I could always do that stuff. But again, I was just lucky and fortunate that when I was probably over that, knew I didn't want to do that anymore. Brendan James, who was the editor of Golf Australia magazine, and I'd known him for a long time, and he said, "What are you doing with yourself?" And I don't really know. And he needed someone to write golf equipment and review golf equipment. And he said, "Would you want to have a go at this?" And I went, "Yeah, why not?" And I went over there and pretty quickly got comfortable doing that and writing and developed my writing. And I've got massive gratitude for BJ because he helped teach me, he taught me how to write better and be a journo effectively on the fly. And that sports journalist stuff, that's when it came back into my mind of, oh yeah, that's what I was supposed to be. And I knew a lot of the guys out on tour because I'd grown up around golf and I started to do tournaments and I started to do more and more. And I ended up being at the magazine for fair few years, how many I can't remember, but ended up being deputy editor, digital editor, helping push it. And then when I was done there, I just kind of went out on my own and started doing work for organizations, work for other things, and started doing TV, podcasts, and stuff. But I think for younger people or parents that are looking at it, it was my sort of thing was the benefit of what I think golf is, right? Golf has so many avenues you can go down and so many interesting things. I realized pretty quickly just after I'd left school that I'm probably going to work in golf my whole life, but what I'll do will probably change 20 times, but there's endless opportunities and possibilities to do that stuff. But storytelling and, you know, I think what the biggest thing for someone who maybe hears what I talk about and is interested is curiosity. You've got to be a curious person who wants to learn or understand things better, right? So if you're a curious person, you see something and you want to understand it and ask questions of it, that's how you're a good interviewer, right? You ask people will go in early days of an interview with their questions written down, and they'll just one to the next, to the next, to the next. If you're a good interviewer, you ask the first question and it opens up the second question. You know, that's how you get someone rolling, and that's how you get someone talking about stuff and comfortable. And then you ask for 5 minutes, it ends up being 25 minutes because they've had a really good conversation. If you are a curious person, you will naturally do that. Now, not everyone's like that. I'm a pretty relaxed person, so I'm comfortable going in unprepared to a certain extent. But being a curious person is how you be a good interviewer, storyteller, because you'll just dive into a subject matter. You'll probably have way too much. That's the thing with the broadcast that I've learned and other people learn is you know so much about one small thing, you're not going to use it all, right? You're going to use maybe 5%, but being good at that is having that other 95% in case. And that's the same with writing stories. You know, you finish a half-hour interview for a feature story on Adam Scott, you could write 6,000 words, but no one wants a 6,000 word story. No. So you've got to condense that down into 1,000 words. That's a tough skill. You learn that on the go, and that's very difficult to do. But it's the curiosity of opening up the things and then looking into things, and that's if someone's interested in it. That's what I'd say is be curious and ask questions.
Your golf ball is the most technologically advanced, or it's not. Your golf ball is either the most consistent or it's not. It's the most trusted or it's not. The fact is, it's either Titleist, the best performing golf ball in the world, or it's not. Prove it for yourself. Titleist, the #1 ball in golf. What will you play?
Two thoughts that come into my head there was, one, I was that curious person that was too scared to put their hand up at PGA coaching summits or whatever. I didn't want to ask the wrong question. And that's why I pushed myself to start doing this, so that I can get all the answers, not just for me, but maybe there's 100 other people that are in my situation and they want to hear it. And it's crazy how much it's changed my life now, because I don't give a shit anymore about asking that sort of silly, not even a silly question, but what I thought, oh, what if I ask it and it's wrong or whatever, right? And the second part is just completely gone from my mind, what I was about to say. It was around, I prepare questions for every podcast that I do.
Yep.
And it's funny, if I was to go back, I don't want to because I'll cringe, but if I went back and listened to my first 20 podcasts, it was me reading question 1, then question 2, question 3, all the way down to 20, and then we're done. What I've done now is it's a guide. Yep. I have the questions written down, and, you know, I'm looking at it now. I wrote 13 for us. I'm probably halfway through the list, but I haven't. There would be 4 questions that I've already dropped off. I'm like, no, we've kind of covered that. Conversation flows better when it's not structured. And I felt like when I was reading from 1 to 20 back in the early days, it was disjointed. And then you lose out on the natural flow of, all right, Jimmy's talking about this, or Billy Horschel's talking about this. I'm gonna have a follow-up question. And you're right. And it can end up, some days it's good. If I want to do a 45-minute podcast, it could end up bloody an hour and a half if the conversation flows too much. So it's good and it's bad. But yeah, I think for anyone listening as well that wants to do it, you would have sucked at the start, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have written some absolute horrendous stories that if I read back, I'd be horrified, and I would have done some interviews that were just unbelievably bad, like everyone does. And I had this conversation with a couple of people over the last couple of weeks because there's new people coming to it. They're learning how to do it, and you're bad when you get started, and you will improve if you keep doing it. But there's no real guide rails. There's no way of teaching you. Yeah, you can go to uni, you can do a journalism or communications course and whatever. That's great, and that's good grounding, but they don't physically pick you up and take you to wherever you're going to end up working and teach you how to do that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things is what I do is such a people person kind of job. That's why that's how you end up being good at it, right? Is you learn to pick up cues, you learn to listen to the answers, and that dictates where the conversation goes, because everyone does write down the question. I've done it too, 100%. That's how you start, and then you learn and you get confident with it and comfortable with it. And if you listen to an answer and someone leads you to something that could be a great follow-up question, that is, from my experience, that is where you're going to get your headline, breaking news, exclusive, something is in there.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know about it or think about it before you were talking to them.
Yeah.
But they've led you there. You've got to attack it and follow up with it. And like Jeff Ogilvy's a great example. I was talking to Jeff about this the other day. Jeff and I get along very well and spend a lot of time together, and I've interviewed him a lot and done a lot of stuff with him. But Jeff is considered this great voice on golf. Like when Jeff speaks, he speaks with authority and people listen and everything like that. Now, Jeff will tell you and joke with you that it wasn't like that before he won the US Open. And then suddenly he won the US Open, and suddenly what Jeff Ogilvy said mattered, right? But Jeff as an interview subject is slowish to start.
Yeah, right.
So you've got the first question, and I've said it to him before, the first question, the answer is generally a throwaway. You're not going to use that quote. It's the next one, and it's the next one, and it's the flow on of it as he starts to muse on the topic and he spits it all out and gets it all out there. You know, that's part of it. And you know when you're doing a good job of it. You can tell when you get either someone say, oh, that's a good question, or they think before they answer. That's when you know you're on it. And if you're just reading your questions out, or you've gone in with a set idea of how it's going to work and a time limit on how it's not going to happen that way, right? That's why podcasts are so good, right? It's a conversation. People get comfortable and they share their experiences or their knowledge or anything like that. And I think exactly what we're talking about with what I do is the best examples of golf coaches I've seen. I've dealt with a lot of them. Curious golf coaches are the best golf coaches. People who want to go and shadow another golf coach and learn from them, or go talk to another player who's not their player about what they're doing and learn and keep getting better. It's the best golf course architects. They're curious as to why someone else does something. The best caddies are the curious ones who ask questions. That's a way to improvement, is curiosity. Players, if they're curious, they're good. Now, you can be overly curious probably as a player and start watching what the other guy's doing on the other end of the range and start doing his drill without knowing what it's doing, or he starts holing putts, so you better get the same putter. But curiosity is definitely what leads to the best, I think, in all the fields of golf.
Has journalism changed in the last 5 to 10 years? Like, even if we looked at it pre and post-COVID, has much changed?
Massively. Yeah, massively.
More podcasts, right? The microphones are too cheap, right? Sorry about that, pal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everyone's got a podcast, which isn't a bad thing, but it's changed hugely. Like I was, when I started, quite an outside person because I came from the golf world of in around the players and that caddies and that side back into this sort of world. It was a separate kind of thing a long time before me. There was the golf writers and there was the golfers, and they didn't interject so much. But in the last 5 years, it's changed massively because there's less people writing genuine, feature stories and stuff like that. Even daily news or game stories in sport, we call them. There's less and less of that, and there's more podcasts, content creators, and everything like that. And it's not necessarily for the worse. Like, if I stayed just purely as a golf writer, I'd probably have to find something else to do at some stage in my life because it probably wouldn't keep paying the bills. But it's changed massively that in the last couple of weeks, those two major events we keep talking about, we were engaging far more with content creators and stuff to be a part of the media credentialed people, because there's huge value in it. And it's still storytelling. It's still metrics that when you're trying to judge how you've done as a media outlet, how successful you've been. And it's changed a lot that everyone kind of can be in their own way media. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean everyone does it well, but it's also changed massively that opinions is now pretty run-of-the-mill, that everyone does them. A journo was not sharing their opinion, they were reporting on what it was in front of them. So whether that was a round of golf in a tournament or whether that was a person who was going to go play a tournament, they were reporting what was the subject matter, whether it was the golf, whether it was the person, whether it was whatever. Opinions or columns was reserved for the very best of the best, who'd been around for a long time, who wrote with an authority. And I got into doing that later in my time in the magazine. I really enjoyed it. I loved writing a weekly column for a certain period, because after doing it for every week for 50 weeks, you kind of run out of opinions. I'm pretty opinionated, but I'm not that opinionated. But now every new person into the world of what we do wants to write opinion columns because they're inflammatory. That's what gets Facebook comments. That's what gets retweets, is, sticking your stake in the ground and saying something that someone's not going to agree with. I get it. It gets clicks, it gets attention, but there's probably so much more of that than there was even 5 years ago, because there's been more people come into it and see that as the thing they want to do. But it's changed in other ways completely. People don't go to events as much. There's so much more remote reporting, like everything. People work away from the main site, which is great. When you're Australia and you're running golf tournaments, that we get coverage around the world. We've had to be better at providing interviews, transcripts, video, access to our players. But it also changes the vibe at a golf tournament of, how many journos are in the scrum asking questions, and it's changed a lot in how people actually go about it, which is just, that's the nature of media. Newspapers don't send as many people to footy games, and there's not as many sports journos. There's not a full-time golf writer for any newspapers anymore. There used to be when I was a kid, and they used to write about amateur golf, club golf, pennant golf. They used to do all that. Peter Stone.
Who was the guy? The guys from
like
there was guys around Sydney. I remember.
So there was a News Corp one, and there was a Fairfax one, and all that. That doesn't exist anymore. So we get footy journos in the off season doing golf, who love golf and do really good jobs. That's changed more and more. So it's changed massively, even in my time, and it'll in 5 years probably look completely different as well, I'd say.
What about the elite player that might be tuning in that might want to brush up on their media skills if they get interviewed? Is there anything that you would really like, if there was just 2 or 3 pointers for when you guys interview someone, whether it's for an article or whether it's, in the media center for all the journalists to tune into? What do you got?
Yeah, they're not out to get you is number one.
Yeah,
they're not trying to make you look like an idiot. They're not setting you up to be a bad guy. The people who do media work, whether they're TV, radio broadcasts, writers, whatever, they're not trying to make you look like a fool. They love telling stories, and they want to tell your story. Yes, if you say the wrong thing, or you stand out on an island and make an opinion of yours known, like Rory, it'll happen, right? But no one's out there to get you, particularly in golf in Australia. But the thing I would say is, you still want to be a good interview. So you want to treat it as if it's something that's part of your job. So treat it professionally, prepare for it. So my thing is, listen to the question, for one. Listen to it, but don't parrot it back. That's how you end up saying the wrong thing. If I wanted someone to say the wrong thing and I just put it in their mind, they might spit it back to them. So listen to the question, take time to consider your answer before you answer the question. But also be yourself and express your personality and who you are. So if you're an elite golfer, that's great. Let's talk about you being an elite golfer. Let's talk about the 5-iron you hit into 16 to a foot. Let's talk about your coach, your family, how you got into golf. That's all really good. But talk about who you are too. Talk about what you like away from the golf course if the opportunity arises. Tell your personality, because that is when we're trying to teach a young elite player about the media, I'd like to see them see it as an opportunity for people to become attached to them because of who they are and their story. That's how you get sponsors. That's how you get invites. That's how you get, social media followers. That's important for younger players these days to build their profile and their sort of awareness. And so use it as a chance to tell who you are, because that's how you'll get people engaged. That's what we try and do in Australia, is talk about pathways through the tour, but it's also about building awareness of who these people are. Elvis Smiley is probably the greatest example in the last couple of years of making sure people know who Elvis is, getting him ready. And now he's gone to the DP World Tour, and now he's ready to do that. And then he'll go to the PGA Tour eventually, I'd say, and he will be ready to do that sort of thing. So see it as an opportunity, and don't be scared of them. Like, they're not going to bite. It happens. And like, I did bad interviews as the interviewer.
Yeah.
The interviewee, you're going to do some duds. You're going to see TV cameras and everything like that. That's a big thing, is I try and relax people when I do it, because I want them to be relaxed. But, I've had players say to me, "You're an idiot all the time. Do you change when you're doing the interview?" I said, "Well, yeah, of course I do. But I'm still trying to be myself and have my own personality, because I want you to do the same as well." So see it as an opportunity, see it as fun. And, like I say, be yourself. Tell yourself.
Life's not that serious.
Exactly. If you love video games and you like talking about it, there's no issue with talking about that and relating it to your golf. Like, that's an interesting thing, because do you know what the next question is? What game do you play?
Yeah,
and that might be fascinating. Hey, Minwoo Lee's got an endorsement deal with, I'm not going to say what game because I actually don't know, because that's not my world, but Min did a massive thing. He's like ambassador for one of the biggest video games in the world, because everyone knows Min loves video games.
Yep.
If he doesn't talk about himself like that in interviews, he doesn't get that, right? I reckon he's been opened up some pretty cool opportunities because he's been very open with who he is,
What's your favorite event that you've ever covered? You mentioned Augusta. I've been there a few times. It's pretty special, hey?
Unreal. I was there in 2019 when Tiger won, covering it.
Oh, wow.
That was unreal. We had Aussies up there all week. Adam played well. Jason played well. Cam played really well. That was pretty special. And growing up a Tiger nerd, having Tiger win, that's pretty hard to beat.
That was Did you cry? I did.
I didn't, no, because I was sitting at a computer trying to write 8 million stories, because that's the worst thing about those events, is they're special. You remember them, but you do so much more work in those weeks that it becomes a work thing.
Yeah.
That stands out. The Open this year at Portrush with Rory coming back after winning the Masters, that was pretty special. Just seeing that, and seeing Portrush is this tiny little town, and a couple of 100,000 people pouring in there for this week on this amazing golf course. And Rory is this superstar, and we had a stack of Aussies, and I was a lot more experienced doing that one. That was cool. President's Cup at Royal Melbourne is pretty hard to beat as well. But I've loved doing pretty much every event. I love tournament golf. That's my thing. The Aussie Open at Royal Melbourne a couple of weeks ago was special. Aussie PGAs at Royal Queensland. Some of the tournaments that stand out from when I was a journo are ones where things went wrong, and I was the journo who wrote the story about what went wrong.
Yep.
And made people upset and made people angry, and people who do what I do now would have been chasing me down. But those are the most fun to cover, because in this job, you won't get a rush like uncovering something and digging into it and, seeing what you got. Sometimes it goes nowhere, I can tell you. And sometimes you think you go, and the boss goes down the phone and goes, "Mate, you haven't got anything here. This is, you just wasted 6 hours." But, those are great fun. But big events are special. But smaller events everywhere, I go to Kalgoorlie every year and do the WAPGA.
Oh, yeah. Commentating?
That's where I did my first commentary, and that's awesome. And that's an event I absolutely love, because it's in the middle of nowhere, kind of. It's a golf course that's incredible in amongst this dirt. But the title sponsor is a legend of a human being, and I like talking to him and hanging out, and there's more freedom for us. They let me do the opener for the TV broadcast this year from the top of a scissor lift. Like, in terms of doing fun stuff.
I
Like,
remember seeing that. Yeah.
that is unreal. So you don't do that at Augusta National, right? So there's been really good ones, and another one I think is Asia Pacific Amateur. I've done a few of,
Yeah.
and I've
That's
done a
such
few
a
where,
cool event because
yeah,
of the first prize is not the trophy, it's the event, like the entry into or the invite into the Masters, right?
yeah, and I did the two, a couple that Aussies won. I did Harrison Crowe in Thailand, and Jasper Stubbs at Royal Melbourne, and I've known Crowe since he was a kid, basically. I know his family and was there to cover that event. That was pretty special. And then Jasper winning at Royal Melbourne, like, that's pretty hard to beat too.
Yeah.
That's a pretty special week. And those weeks are cool because you're working with the guys from Augusta, from RNA, and it's this combined effort. And those are fun weeks too. There's no real bad weeks unless it's pouring with rain and your main job is working out what you say about when there's a day that's going to be lost to rain or whatever. But
What a life. What a
yeah,
life.
sometimes, yeah.
I reckon there's people that are just sitting here going, wow, this guy's landed. And you know what? I guess it just goes to show for if there's some kids listening or parents that are worried about their kids not making it on tour and what are they going to do? Like, you're living out a childhood dream pretty much still too, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I get to be around golf, and
Yeah.
that's what I like doing, and I think that was my old man probably had the same concerns and worries. He's a lawyer. He sent me to a good school to get a good education and probably a good job, and I kind of went, well, that's not what I'm going to do. But I think he kind of realized, oh, you're going to do what you want to do, and you're going to work it out. And I think I said it earlier, I think that's the greatest thing about golf, right? Is there's always something in golf. I've always thought this, I'll find something. You can always go back and work in a pro shop, do this, do that. You can be a greenkeeper, like that's a great job. I thought about it at one time. I thought I'd love to do that. There's so many things to do. And so I think that's where golf's a great sport and a great industry. Like I'm really, really up and around on the industry of golf because
there's so many parts to it.
Yeah, and so many guys I grew up with or worked with, and everyone ends up doing something completely different than what they were doing at the time you did it with them.
Yeah.
But they end up happy, or if they're not, they go and do something else. And and the industry and it's massive, but it's small. That you get to know all these people, you end up doing cool stuff, and it's pretty hard to beat, I would have thought.
Yeah. Now, last thing before we go, I may have missed this, which means maybe I haven't done my job of brushing up. But when you guys announced the dates for the Australian Open next year, you had a picture of Rory in there. Is he coming again?
He sure is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
He's Kingston Heath. He'll be there. Favorite golf course in Melbourne. So yeah, that was from the get go. He was in for 2 years. Yeah. So
okay.
He'll be back, and I think that's a really important thing as well. Like momentum of what you do is really important, and his decision to come, the impact has been so huge on the tournament, on the sport, on everything here. To capitalize on it the next year is really important. So yeah, he'll be back, and hopefully a whole lot more, basically.
Oh, I'll have to get my media pass for next year and come down.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Stupid questions.
Exactly. There's no shortage of those. That's mate, to be honest, people who come into it late and ask questions who aren't the people who've been doing it for a long time often ask the most interesting ones that end up with interesting answers. Like, people might turn their nose up and go, who's that person asking questions? But they oftentimes end up with really good answers because it's different. That's the best part of my sort of world is when you come into it with a different scope, you'll ask something from a different scope and it will get a different answer. And that's an awesome thing. Yes, it goes too far a lot of the time. Like we don't need to know what color underwear a player's wearing. But yeah, someone can ask something that is no one else has thought of because that's just not the world they come from. And that is really true of like really hyper focused things, but deliver really good things. So like from a PGA member kind of thing and a golf coach, you would potentially ask a question of Adam Scott that is really about technique or improving or coaching or something. that would get you the most amazing answer that you could use for whatever your purpose is, that a journo writing a daily news story has no interest in. But that's what it's about. That's the cool thing about it. Like someone asks something that's completely different and it gets a really cool answer about lifestyle or about travel. Like that's the ideal world, right? You don't want everyone asking the same things or thinking about the same things. The best golf is at its best, media is at its best when there's variety and diversity in the people asking the questions, answering the questions, and playing.
Love it.
Pretty simple.
Mate, this has been an awesome chat. Thank you so much for coming on, buddy.
No worries at all. My absolute pleasure. I've been very much looking forward to doing it. So it's good stuff.
Take care, mate. See ya.